Welcome to Armchair Expat, the podcast meant to get you out of your lazy boy and into your new life abroad. I'm Shannon Acton, founder of Bargain Homes Abroad, and I'm riding shotgun as we chase the dream of life beyond borders. Each episode, we'll hear stories from people who've left their comfort zone to explore the world. They'll share their highs, their lows, and their in-betweens, all meant to lovingly light a fire under your bum, so you can stop dreaming about it and start living it. So if you're stuck in your comfy recliner, scrolling through dreamy destinations, wondering what if, it's time to swap that raggedy old armchair for a one-way ticket. Let's freaking go, people. What happens when a quick birthday trip turns into a brand new life abroad? In today's episode of Armchair Expat, I'm joined by Erin Charlotte, an international real estate agent and golden visa advisor, helping Americans find their version of paradise in Portugal. Erin shares how a spontaneous visit to Porto changed everything, what it takes to buy property abroad, and why more Americans are choosing Portugal for its sunshine, safety, and slower pace of life. We dig into the realities of relocating, the ins and outs of Portugal's real estate market, and how Erin built a thriving business from scratch, all fueled by a lemon tree and a viral Instagram reel. But before we dive in, let's hear from our sponsor. If you're dreaming of life in the sun, maybe a characterful little house in one of Andalusia's Pueblo Blancos, a lavender-scented gîte in rural France, a rustic farmhouse in the hills of Tuscany, or a beachside apartment in Portugal's glittering Algarve coast, you need to know about Quirks. Quirks is the place to find your dream home abroad, with over 700,000 properties across Spain, Portugal, France, and Italy. From chic city lofts to rustic fincas and even historic chateaux, Quirks makes it easy to explore incredible homes all in one place. And it's not just listings. Quirks is also packed with expert advice to guide you every step of the way, from picking the right location to navigating visas and citizenship and settling into your new lifestyle. Plus, if you sign up to their emails, you'll get a weekly dose of inspiration straight to your inbox. Think sunlit French estates with working vineyards, serene wellness retreats in Spain designed for solo living, charming Portuguese quintas perfect for your retirement dreams, and historic villas with pools in the hills outside of Rome. You'll also find themed guides like the best places to buy if you're a wine lover, plus the latest property market insights from local experts. Everything you need to plan your escape with confidence. So, if you're ready to swap your Pinterest boards for plane tickets, visit Quirks.com, Kyero.com, and start your search today. That perfect place in the sun, it's waiting for you. Hello, Erin. Welcome to the Armchair Expat podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Shannon, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about where you're from and your background, and then we'll get into where you're at.
I'm from Minnesota and I currently live in Portugal, but how I got here was kind of an interesting story. So at the time, I was getting a master's in Switzerland. I was studying, but I was living in Spain at the time when I actually discovered Portugal. What I did is I spent the winter in Spain. I'm from Minnesota, but I don't like the cold, so I wanted to just get away for the winter. So I pursued a semester at the Barcelona campus. And what I thought was just going to be a birthday trip to Portugal actually ended up just completely changing everything for me. I first traveled to Porto. It's the city that stole my heart, made me fall in love with Portugal. And then during that trip, I had ventured down to Lisbon. And I think when I arrived in Lisbon, it kind of solidified everything. I knew I was seriously only in Portugal for about 3 days, but I knew that I wanted to live here. I wanted to be in this beautiful country. And honestly, the reason why is Portugal. And before I visited Portugal, I was so biased to Spain. I said, I'm moving to Spain. I still love Spain. I absolutely love that country. But in Portugal, I just found a home. I felt truly for the first time, I guess, living in Europe as an American, kind of a home away from home. I felt very welcomed immediately. I felt very safe. It felt familiar. Yes, of course, in every country you go, there are culture shocks, but it was totally doable. It was totally doable. And from there, I fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the weather. I fell in love with the food. And through that, I thought to myself, so I want to live here. Okay. But how am I going to do it? Because I had tried previously living in Switzerland to get a job. It was incredibly difficult because I did not hold an EU passport. And so what I did is I actually, before I had moved here full time, I moved back to the States for a year. And I kind of took that time to figure out, my plan as to how I was going to get back to Portugal. Before I moved back for a year, I did a lot of travel through the country. It was actually, I always say the lemon tree made me want to do real estate in Europe or in Portugal. But I was in the Algarve, and I was looking at this, just going on property business, just trying to understand the market. I was always interested in real estate. I do hold a license in the United States, in the state of Wisconsin. So real estate was always familiar to me, but I was on this property visit, and I was looking at this beautiful villa, and it was 9 acres, was fig tree, olive tree, lemon tree. It was a dream. It was 10 minutes from the sea. It was gated. It was beautiful. It was everything. And it was only 700,000 euros. And seriously, after that visit, I said, okay, I'm going to come to Portugal. I'm going to sell real estate, but I'm going to sell real estate to expats, because one thing I also saw was during that visit, we had 2 Portuguese women, and I was communicating with them on the visit, talking to them on the visit, and I was just asking how the market was down there. And they were saying that they kept talking about this British woman, how she was, the top seller in the office and everything. And she said, yeah, she's English speaking. She's native English speaking. The clientele down there, it's very international. It's a lot of Canadians, it's a lot of British, a lot of Americans. And I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be an American, and I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to help. Because the thing is expats are moving here anyway. I'm going to help them through this process, because the thing about Portugal's real estate market is that there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of differences. Things move slower here. It's the bureaucracy. Things take time. And as an American who wants things done yesterday, it can be scary. It can be stressful. And so I had a plan moving back to the States for a year. And how I achieved coming back was, I had a thesis to write for my master's program. I dedicated my whole thesis to the golden visa in Portugal's real estate market. So I learned and I studied everything that I needed to do without actually getting this experience. And I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason. And I do feel that I'm supposed to be here helping people enter into Portugal's real estate market. But during that time, just the people I was meeting while I was in the States, I had gotten a job at actually Century 21's, and the CEO, who happened to be cousins with my boss. And the first time I met him, I just said to him, I said, like, hi, how are you? What are your goals? And I said, to be honest, my goals are to sell real estate in Portugal. And he goes, oh, I know the CEO of Century 21. Let me put you in contact with him. I went over and I took the opportunity to meet with the CEO of Century 21. Same thing. He said, Erin, how can I help you? And I said, I want to sell real estate in your market, in Portugal's real estate market. So he just started putting me in contact with people from all over Portugal. And at that time, I hadn't started my Instagram account yet, which is how all my clients find me. And I went home, I made another plan. My problem was I knew I wanted to enter this market, but I didn't have clients. I hadn't found them yet. I didn't know how to find them. So I turned to social media as kind of my outlet for that. And so I studied the algorithm. I learned how to do social media marketing, and I just started my account. And after about 30 days of starting my account, I had a reel that went viral, and it was a lemon tree, ironically. And the prompt was, why did 10,000 Americans move to this country? And from there, I realized, I said, okay, there's definitely a need for this. People definitely want to be doing this. And what I was finding was that people really wanted to do it. They just didn't know how. They had no idea how to even start. The thought of moving abroad, leaving the US, most people, if you don't like the state you live in, you just move to a different state. There's 50 different states to choose from. But I was just really finding that the more information that I could provide, the more people felt comfortable. So I started getting clients. I started referring clients out. I was a referral agent. I wasn't living there full time. And I was, learning as I was going, referring out. And by that summer, so I started my account March 2024. So it's been a year and a couple months now since I started my account. And I had enough clients to come over for the summer. And so I said, okay, I'm coming over. I'm coming to Portugal. I'm going to say 2 weeks, and 2 weeks turned to 2 months. And I said, I need to move here now. I need to move here right now. Went back in August, packed up my stuff, and I moved full time. And I haven't looked back, and it's been absolutely amazing. I mean, my business has taken off. I'm very busy, being sometimes too busy, but that's never a problem. Being busy is so good. And I think a lot of things have definitely impacted people's want and desire, and also, I guess you could say, a sort of courage to actually make the leap to Europe in general, to Portugal. A lot of factors are our political climate. That was a huge factor. I had 500 people reach out to me after the election results. I could not keep up. I was like drowning all of November. But again, that was great. I was able to help a lot of people. And I think, politics aside, it's in a way, Europe is the new American dream. It's safer, it's more affordable, it's a better quality of life. You just value different things, community, relationships, and I'm living my dream. I'm living my dream, and I'm also helping people live their dream too, because it's just really great getting on the phone with clients and they say, Erin, I want to do this. How do I do this? How do I do this? Help me. How do I do this? But it's really great because, while we primarily help Americans, we help the expat buyer. We really help the expat buyer, and we go as far as helping with residency as well too. But we really just try to streamline the whole process and make it realistic, actually, for expats that want to do this, to come over and do this and not feel stressed out and overwhelmed, and make it an enjoyable experience.
You first came over and fell in love with Porto, and then Lisbon, and then went down and spent some time in the Algarve. How did you decide where you actually wanted to land once you did decide to move?
Well, honestly, I think the biggest problem about Portugal is that there's too many good places to live, because I really did think I was going to live in the Algarve. But then I came to Lisbon, and Lisbon, one, the location is great. It's in the center of the country. I'm actually driving down tomorrow to the Algarve for an inspection. It's going to take me about 2.5 hours to get down there. Okay. So you can be in true paradise, in the beaches, in the south in 2.5 hours. And then in the north, you can be in Porto in about 3 hours. So since I do service throughout the country, I mean, from a location standpoint, it makes the most sense. So Lisbon is a really stimulating city. There's a ton to do there. It's super international. It's very entrepreneurial. You never get bored. And it has a really, really great real estate market. I do service. One of my main areas I service is this Cascais Estoril market. And I don't know, maybe I didn't choose Lisbon. It chose me. And I am convinced I will move to Porto at some point. I don't know when, but I think for what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to help my clients, Lisbon, it is an amazing city, and it makes sense. It makes sense for how I conduct my business.
Lisbon, I know, has gotten relatively expensive in comparison. Are there any other kind of undiscovered hidden gems that you would recommend looking at, kind of up and coming markets?
If you're looking for up and coming, I say up and coming from an investment standpoint, because the north, it is growing. There is development everywhere. And one thing that's really great is, from a price point, you really, really can enter in affordably. What I like to say about the north is that prices haven't burst like Lisbon and Cascais. They're bursting. So the main advantage of the north, and Porto and Vila Nova de Gaia and that whole area, even Braga, is that it is affordable, and your euro, your dollar, it will stretch further. In terms of hidden gems, I would say that people are loving. You go across the river. You can go into Setúbal. Comporta has definitely burst because the royals live there, all the Hollywood stars live there. But I would definitely say across the river, that's where the new money's going. Costa de Caparica, that used to be more seasonal, but now we're really seeing a jump in prices. And people love it because it's a lifestyle. You can be right on the beach.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about your day-to-day life in comparison to what it was in the United States.
Well, in comparison to I like to call it my European pedestrian life, even though I finally kind of bit the bullet and I'm in the process of buying a car. I walk more, I eat more fish, I drink wine every day. I'm not an alcoholic. I have it casually and it's amazing. I have a glass of white wine at dinner. And I would just say, I mean, I do work a lot because I love what I do. I'm more calm. It's a different rhythm here. I just feel more, even, because any job can be stressful. You just feel more content because even though you're working hard, the pace of life here is a lot different. It's calmer. But in terms of differences, main differences, I do a lot more walking. And I have yet to take a surf lesson. I do want to get to surfing. And I I think even just how I spend my free time. I mean, in the US, we take our coffee to go, you know? Here, you sip on your espresso and you sit and you just enjoy and you calm down. You don't take your coffee to go here. It's calmer. I would say that is the biggest thing is just learning really, really how to slow down because if you don't, you're constantly fighting with the culture. You either have to you have to fight and be a crazy American, or you just kind of let go and you just enjoy being here. It's easier to just go along with it because it's so it really just it kind of takes you away.
And that leads me to kind of what were some of the challenges that you faced trying to assimilate into a new culture?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, for me, moving to Portugal because I've had experiences living in different countries. I think that helped a lot. I had, when I was living in Switzerland, I did have a lot of cultural differences. But I would say in terms of Portugal, two things. One, it's a rule following society. It is, and it's a very ticket based society. You go to the grocery store, you grab a ticket. Even if no one's in line, they will not help you until you have your ticket. You go to the store and you really want to buy this sweater. No, they would never just cut the tag off. You take it off, you do it, you pay for it and you put it on. But it's great though because there's rules and everyone respects the rules. In line, no one ever cuts in line. It's an unsaid rule. No one ever cuts in line. When you're on the metro, you're on the train, an elderly person walks in or a pregnant woman walks in, you get up and you let them sit. It is a rule. You would never, no matter how tired you are, it is respect. It's just common courtesy, honestly. And I would say my hardest adjustment was being patient. And to be honest, it still is. It still is. I've gotten a lot better at it. But, living in the US where everything's going 100 miles per hour and no one ever takes a break and everything's, I mean, done like this, it's hard to, you want to get into a showing because you have a client in town and they won't show on a Saturday because they have their cousin's barbecue. And you're thinking to yourself, no, just wait till Monday, just wait till Monday. You're thinking to yourself, what? Really? So maybe it's also a little bit of the work culture, but it's been nice because it's really kind of taught me to just calm down, enjoy my time more. And I would also say another difficulty that I have, it's customer service. The client is not always right in
Mm.
Portugal. Where in the States, the client is always right. Do whatever they want. It's not the case here. Let's say you're arguing, or not that I'm actively arguing, with waiters or anything, but if you were to say something, nope, nope, impossible. Well, why? It's the rule. No. Or you go out to dinner and they take maybe 5 minutes to greet you at the table. Things are just relaxed here. They're just slow. No one's ever in a rush. And I think that's something that I always tell clients about. I say, okay, you're in Portugal, things take time. Because sometimes in the US, if stuff doesn't get done, it's seen as disrespectful. But here, it's just the culture. People they value their weekends, they value their holidays, they value their free time. They work 9 to 5. They really, really they follow that way of life, and they're a lot happier.
How have you found, since you are now working with American clients and coming over, has your work changed and what boundaries do you set with clients? Or do
Well,
you?
that's a great question. I do set boundaries, but also I don't because the point is that I live in Portugal and they are mostly living in the States. So I think the biggest thing is it is the time zone.
Mm.
I myself, in terms of setting boundaries, Yeah, I mean, I will message someone at midnight because I know for someone in California, it's mid-morning, midday. And that's just kind of the case of working in that market. In terms of how I've set boundaries is I think, starting out, let people have, too much access to me. I mean, I used to, like, when I was first starting, I had someone say, "Oh, can you plan a trip for me?" I'll always give a recommendation. I will always help out. I will always take the phone call. But, I'm not a tour guide. I'm an expert in the market, but my expertise is real estate. And I'm going to do everything I can to help and to provide and to make that experience as enjoyable as possible, because it really does make me happy when my clients get to experience Portugal, because I love this country. But I think it's just being firm in what you're an expertise about.
So let's go back to that year gap when you went back home and were trying to figure out how to get back to Portugal. I know a lot of people are in this position where they want to move abroad, but they're really like, I need a path to get there. I need to either start a business or find a
Yeah.
job, and you did that, and you took the bull by the horns, and you studied, and you created basically a job for yourself and created a whole personal brand. What advice do you give to people? What are the opportunities that you see specifically for Portugal for people that want to move abroad and maybe start their own business or do their own
What?
thing?
Yeah. I would say the service industry. We need nail salons. We need med spas. Because the point is that expats are coming in. It's not just Americans. Everyone from all over the world is coming here. French, Canadian, American, British, Ukrainian, South African. I mean, this country is welcoming all. They're welcoming everyone. And the point is you have to look at kind of those gaps. 24-hour laundry service, that would be a great investment. Med spas, I think, because the thing is, for beauty services, the prices are pretty comparable to the US, actually, because expats, they expect, and if they get the service that they find to be equivalent to the US, they'll pay it, even if they're in Portugal or not. They'll pay it.
Is it difficult to start businesses like that in Portugal?
Well, you can. So it's not actually, because what you need the right research to do it. I would always recommend getting a legal representation to help with that.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna need certain approvals, but it's really not hard. I think because actually there are certain visas tied to starting a business in Portugal, and if you can meet those specific requirements, then it's not hard to get. Portugal, they're very welcoming in terms of culture, but in terms of opportunity too. I mean, you look at Portugal's golden visa and the fact that, one, it's still around, and two, it's super accessible. It's actually one of the quickest pathways to citizenship.
Can we talk a little bit about the Golden Visa? Because I know it's
Yeah.
changed a lot over the years. And how,
Yeah.
as of now, how does it exist? Like, what are the
Okay. As
opportunities?
of as of now, so one thing that's important to know about Portugal's golden visa is that there are multiple ways to obtain it. I mean, you can actually start a business and get golden visa status with that. But the point is that you can start a business. You could do a cultural donation, but the most popular way and the most economical way is to do the fund investment. So in October of 2020. Portugal announced that golden visa was ending, and everyone was freaking out. What's going on? It was truly just a lot of misinformation, because what happened was that real estate was ending, and really real estate was over 90% of that route that people were choosing. But the point is that it didn't end, it changed. It just changed. And so the changes made to it are, instead of real estate, you now invest into a fund, a private equity investment fund. And this fund, it needs to support an economic sector. You could invest into a tech fund, a renewable energy fund. Actually, Portugal is the leading country in renewable energy efforts in all of the EU. I think they're 74% dependent on renewable energy. And their goal for 2025 is to actually be the main exporter of renewable energy across the EU. So, you can do renewable energy investment, hospitality. The hospitality funds are doing great too, just because what we're seeing with tourism and what's going on in Portugal's market in general. Golden Visa is still around, and it's very easy to get. You need to do a €500,000 investment into a fund. This investment is not only for you, it can be for your spouse and your children. There are age requirements. And actually your parents can opt in too, but again, there are certain age requirements and certain specific things that need to be fulfilled in order for certain family members to be on that. It's incredibly attainable. I mean, I have a lot of clients that are just doing this because for multiple different reasons. I want access to Europe. I want to start my plan B. I bought a property here and I don't want to count my 90 days in the EU with my pet. There's just so many things. What's also really great, and I don't think a lot of people know this, is that you can actually roll over your 401k. You can roll over your 401k and that can be your investment. So there's certain funds that are eligible for that.
So can we talk a little bit about kind of the real estate and how it differs from the United States? What's the process, how it works, just so Americans can go into it, their eyes wide open a little bit?
Purchasing property in Portugal is actually very attainable. So there's only two things that you actually need to purchase property in Portugal. So one is you need a NIF. Your NIF, it's your tax ID number. So it's kind of like our social security number in the United States, except for the security level is not as high. I mean, I know people's NIFs, they know my NIFs. They actually ask your NIF at the grocery store sometimes. I for tax purposes. Yeah, it's very interesting. And the second thing that you need is you need a bank account. And it needs to be a bank account in Portugal. It doesn't need to be a Portuguese specific bank, meaning that I have clients that bank with Santander, and Santander is a Spanish bank. But it's very easy to purchase property in Portugal. I mean, Americans, they can finance. They can finance. Typically, I like to tell clients, expect about putting around 30% down. I would say, it can be higher and lower dependent on what they can get. Age is dependent, income is dependent. One thing that Portugal looks at in terms of financing is they look at debt in terms of your mortgage on your home and your car. And so in terms of the property process itself, though, it's pretty similar. You're looking at, a 60 to 90-day close. Obviously, it can be longer or shorter. I had an all cash sale that closed in under 30 days, which was amazing. But it is pretty similar to the U.S. I think one of the biggest things is property taxes. Property taxes are very low in Portugal. What you're going to see is higher property taxes at closing, typically around 8% at closing for residential. But what you're also going to see is, your property taxes, seriously, you're going to have, I don't know, a €1 million home. You're probably going to be paying just, under or above €1,000 annually for your property tax. I mean, this market, it's really set up to help people hold their assets. And I think another thing that people absolutely love about real estate markets is that the interest rates are very low. The interest rates are sitting at like around 3%. In terms of, yes, you can get an inspection on your property. Closing's pretty similar. It's pretty typical. Not really any major differences that would completely put someone to not want to purchase here. I think the biggest thing is just knowing, okay, this is how much I am expected to put down. This is what my closing costs are going to be. I should start getting my NIF. If I'm going to look at property, I should get my NIF right when I get here and I look, because NIFs can take a little bit to get sometimes. It's usually depending on the season. I mean, I've seen a NIF get here in a week. I've seen a NIF get here in a month. So it just depends.
Okay. And when you mentioned the property tax upon sale, is that a purchase price or is it a different calculation in Portugal?
It is upon the purchase price.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Are there any other parties involved that are out of the ordinary? I know in other countries there's, sometimes lawyers are involved and sometimes notaires are involved. What is that like in Portugal?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So everything gets notarized here. And then in terms of the transaction itself, it's a lot of lawyers. A lot of lawyers, we have an in-house attorney, but you can hire the attorney to draft it's called the CPCB, it's the contract. You can hire the attorney to draft the contract. So I would say primarily who's involved in the sale, it's the lawyers. The lawyers are doing all the communication.
Okay. Is it highly competitive? What is the market like as far as, sales prices? It goes for over asking? Is it under asking? Is there a lot of bidding? How does that work?
So this market, in comparison to the US, it's still a maturing market. Because the thing is Portugal, in terms of real estate, they really started getting on the map in 2012. When they implemented Portugal's golden visa and the real estate option. We saw a huge increase in prices around COVID. In terms of competition, I think that there's a lot of room for growth and maturity. Properties do sit longer here on the market than they do in the US. You know, if you're looking at the market in the Algarve, I mean, it's seasonal. People, they come, they look, they fly back, they look again. Lisbon's a little faster paced because it's the capital. But I did a sale in the Algarve, and just the overall attitude that they had toward business down there, it was almost like, okay, if we don't sell this time. I said, what do you mean? Okay, it's different. It's different up here. And so I would say that one thing that makes it competitive is that there's a lot of open listings here in Portugal. In the US, we see pretty much exclusive. And in my opinion, exclusive works. You have one agent on it working 110%, putting all this time and effort into marketing, and they get it sold. That's the point. But here, it's kind of, let's level the playing field. Let's give multiple brokerages an opportunity. But what you have is, because there is no centralized MLS system, is that you have the same property marketed multiple times. You have different quality of photos. This is really bad, but I've seen same property with different photos. I was at the property, so I knew that this would happen. It was listed for, there was a price gap of 700,000 euros. And it's crazy. And we called him, we said, what's the correct price? And the seller, he was very upset. He's like, I don't know why they would put this. I know why they would put this. They're competing against 3 other brokerages, and they're just trying to get a lead. They're trying to get business. So it creates a lot of chaos, I would say, in terms of that in the market, which can also, it can also weigh heavy on trust too. It can, this is not a very trusting market. It's just not. So you have to be careful. And I think there's a lot of room for growth and opportunity and maturity in this market.
So what would you tell anyone who's on the fence and thinking about Portugal? Like, what would you recommend to them? What would you say to them to convince them to come to Portugal?
I'd just say, you already know you want to do it, so you should just come and do it. Because I get on calls with clients and they've never been to Portugal and they know they want to be here. And they come over and they meet me and they buy. There's something for everyone here in Portugal. And I tell people that even when they're, thinking, first getting started on their property search, I don't know where to live. I say you need to focus on the lifestyle. What do you want your lifestyle to be there? Because there's something in Portugal for everyone. And there's the property, it's the easy part. I mean, there's a ton of amazing product here. I think it's really honing in on your lifestyle. And I say, the grass is greener on the other side. I have never looked back. I've never regretted my choice. I moved here by myself. I feel very safe. I'm very happy. I know I've made the right decision. And I think for those that are especially fed up with what's going on in the US right now, is I care, but I don't care, because I'm here and I'm enjoying my life and I'm helping people, and it's not as hard as it seems. The hardest part is convincing yourself to do it. That's the hardest part. The rest, it's a walk in the park. So I would say, come over, enjoy the lemons, and find paradise.
And so you mentioned all the clients that you've worked with have found through your Instagram, and that's how I found you as well. Yeah. So can you share your Instagram so that everybody can go and follow and get in touch with you?
Of course. Yes. My Instagram, it's myself, Erin Charlotte, ErinCharlotte, home _. So give me a follow. And if you're looking to purchase property in Portugal or find paradise, please reach out to me. I'm so very happy to help you.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Shannon.
Absolutely. And that's it for today's episode. Thanks for listening and spending some time with us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Make sure to follow the show and leave a review. It will really help others find us. And if you're dreaming about a life abroad or already living it, I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me on Instagram at bargainhomesabroad or on our website, www.bargainhomesabroad.co. Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and I'll see you back in the armchair soon. Bye-bye.